Okay, so today what we're going to be working on is coming up with an equation if our zeros, our roots, are irrational. That means they have radicals in them. Okay, so I want you to put me on pause, try this. I want you to solve these. I want it done by completing the square. Okay, so put me on pause, do that, and then come back and check your answer. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is always make sure my leading coefficient is a 1, and it is. So now I'm going to minus 6 from both sides. So minus 6. So I have x squared plus 8x equals negative 6. All right, now we do half of b, the middle term, that's 8. Half of 8 is positive 4. Then we square it, which is 16, and then I take that number and I add it over into both sides of the equation. So then I get x squared plus 8x plus 16 equals negative 6 plus 16. Okay, so now negative 6 plus 16, this here, the right side, is 10. On the left side, we're going to factor the trinomial. Now remember, when we factor this trinomial, you could sit there and do master product, but when we complete the square, the parentheses are going to be the same. So it's going to be x and x, and the number that goes inside the parentheses is whatever number we squared. We squared 4, and it's positive 4, so it's x plus 4, x plus 4. So now, what's another way to write x plus 4 times x plus 4? Well, that would be x plus 4 squared. And then I have that equals 10. Okay, so I just need to give myself a little bit more room, so hold on. Okay, so let me just move this up now. So we have here x plus 4 squared equals 10. So I'm just going to rewrite that up here, because I ran out of room. So we have x plus 4 squared equals 10. All right, so now how do we get rid of the square? Well, to get rid of the square, we square root both sides. So the square and square root cancel each other out. So now I'm left with x plus 4 equals. Now, when we take the square root, don't forget we need plus minus. So it's plus minus the square root of 10. All right, now I need to solve for x. So I'm going to minus 4. Put the minus 4 in front of the plus minus. So x equals negative 4 plus minus the square root of 10. And remember, you can't add them because one's a square root and one is not. So that's my answer. I have two zeros. X equals negative 4 plus the square root of 10, and x equals negative 4 minus the square root of 10. All right, so we'll start working on number 2. All right, same thing. I'm going to isolate, move the constant over, so I'm going to add 11 to both sides. So I get x squared minus 6x equals positive 11. All right, now we're going to do half of negative 6, which is negative 3. Squared is positive 9. Add that to both sides. So I get x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 11 plus 9. All right, so 11 plus 9 is 20. And I'm going to factor this left side here. So remember, when we factor, it's the same parentheses, it's x and x, and the number that goes inside the parentheses is whatever number we squared. That's why it's important to make sure you have the right signs. So that's negative 3. So it's negative x minus 3 times x minus 3. And another way to write x minus 3 times x minus 3 would be x minus 3 squared. All right, so I have x minus 3 squared equals 20. Now we're going to square root both sides to get rid of the square. So I get x minus 3 equals plus minus the square root of 20. Now we would not leave the square root of 20 like that because that can be simplified. It's actually plus minus, right? So what perfect square goes into 20? 4 and 5. So it's plus minus 2 the square root of 5. So we're going to rewrite that. X minus 3 equals plus minus 2 the square root of 5. All right, now we're going to solve for x. Add 3. Make sure that goes in front of the plus minus. x equals 3 plus minus 2 the square root of 5. All right, so now what we're going to do, notice, in order to get these radical answers, you have to complete the square or use the quadratic formula, but we can't use the quadratic formula backwards, but we can actually complete the square backwards. So that's what we're going to do. When we're given irrational zeros, to come up with the equation, we're going to do complete the square backwards, okay? All right, so let's look at the first example. I have here, my zeros are plus minus the square root of 5. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is set it equal to x, all right, because that's what I had here, right? I had them first equal to x, okay? So set them equal to x. So I have x equals plus minus the square root of 5. So now just think of this. How do I get rid of a square root? To get rid of a square, I squared rooted both sides, right? Look up here. To get rid of the square up here, right, I square rooted. So now how do I go the other way? How do I get rid of a square root? Well, to get rid of a square root, I'm going to square both sides. So I'm going to square the whole thing, both sides. So I get x squared equals, now, since I'm squaring a positive minus here, this plus minus, the answer is just positive. Just plug this in the calculator. Plug in your calculator the square root of 5 squared. Plug this into the calculator, and you'll get 5. Now we just have to move the 5 over. Minus 5. X squared minus 5 equals 0. That's my final answer. Make sure it's equal to 0. Okay, so let's take a look at number 2. All right, a little bit more difficult because I have that 1 in front, that negative 1. Start off by setting them equal to x. So I have x equals negative 1 plus minus the square root of 3. All right, now, you want to make sure you isolate the radical. You want to get the radical all by itself. So I have to add 1. So I have x plus 1 equals plus minus the square root of 3. All right, so now we're going to square both sides. That's how I'm going to get rid of the square root. Now, on the right side, just plug this into the calculator, radical 3 squared. And what you get is 3. Now, the right side, x plus 1 squared, means to do x plus 1 times x plus 1. So now we're going to double distribute. All right, so we have x times x is x squared. X times 1 is 1x. 1 times x is 1x. And 1 times 1 is 1. And remember, it's still equal to 3. In the middle here, we can clean this up, combine like terms. So I have x squared, 1x plus 1x is 2x, plus 1 equals 3. Now, you're not going to leave it equal to 3. You want it to equal 0. So minus 3 from both sides. X squared plus 2x. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. And make sure you still have it equal to 0. Okay? All right, let's take a look at number 3. Just going to get rid of this here. Actually, I don't need to. All right, so number 3. Start off by setting them equal to x. So I have x equals 3 plus minus 2 the square root of 10. All right, so we're going to minus 3 from both sides. That's how I start. We want to get this isolated. X minus 3 equals 2 plus minus, the square root of 10. Now, this 2 is attached to the square root of 10. Just leave it attached. You can plug that into the calculator like that. But make sure you square the whole thing, including that 2. Okay, just plug this in the calculator. Use parentheses, right? Plug it in, parentheses 2, hit the square root of button, 10, close the parentheses, hit the square button, okay? And you'll get 40. So then on the left side, x minus 3 squared is x minus 3 times x minus 3. All right, now we're ready to double distribute. X times x is x squared. X times negative 3 is negative 3x. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9, equals 40. Clean up the middle here. X squared minus 6x, that's negative 3x minus 3x, plus 9 equals 40. Okay, minus 40 from both sides because we want it to equal 0. X squared minus 6x, 9 minus 40 is negative 31, equals 0. Final answer. All right, so that's it, and we'll practice more in class tomorrow. Everybody have a good night.